Hello, Eric. How are you?
I'm great. I'm great, Lauren. I'm so impressed with the opening. It looks so good
Yeah,
and theme music and everything.
yeah, we've only done this for what, 9 months? We're finally figuring it out. But anyway, thank you all for joining us. I'm Lauren from RDU on Stage, and I'm here with Eric Woodall, who is the producing artistic director, and my friend from North Carolina Theater. We were just saying a minute ago, I think you may have been my first guest on the podcast 100 years ago. It seems like now, and I've interviewed you a lot. So welcome
Yes,
back.
thank you so much. Thank you. Yeah, I do know that I was one of the first, um and I use my hands a lot, and I know that became a problem, and so then the
We
next
have,
time you got
I
it there.
oh no, I made Eric a pillow so when I interview him for the podcast, he doesn't bang on the table, and I have the pillow next to me. So
And I started sitting on my hands just to be a little calmer. But before we go on, I just have to say to you, congratulations on the Medal of the Arts. I think that is an incredible recognition and so well deserved, Lauren, for all that you're doing for not just our theatrical community here, but Raleigh in general. I mean, you're making us national, you're making us global, and we have so much gratitude to you.
well, thank you. It's easy to do because we have so much great theater here and so many great artists here. And I love it so much. And I miss it. I miss it.
Yeah,
I watched The Grinch last night. For me to watch The Grinch and actually enjoy it, I was like, I'm really missing theater right now.
I know. I know.
Anything.
I know. It's so incredible. It's like there've been certain clips. I don't know. I'm not one that I don't listen to a lot of show music because I spent 16 years hearing it, sung in my face for 8 hours a day, and I love it. And then I would go see a show 3 or 4 times a week at night. On top of that, so in my downtime, I don't normally put music on, but I do have Sirius, the Broadway channel that I'll play in the car sometimes. Um, Seth Rudetsky is a friend, and mainly to listen to him. But I don't know. A couple times I've gotten in the car, and a certain song will come on, and it's just like the floodgates, because I miss it. I miss it. I miss the feeling of being in there and being in a theater and having that experience.
Me too. I can't wait to get back to it when it's safe. And speaking of Seth Rudetsky, for those of you who do watch Stars in the House, Eric was a surprise guest for the episode. Billy Porter was on that episode, and you were
Mhm.
a surprise guest, and it was joyful to watch. So very exciting.
Yes, yeah, and the three of us go way back. We were actually in a production of Dreamgirls at Candlewood Playhouse in 1989. Billy and I were in school together, and it was in the summer. And anyway, and Seth was the associate music director. So that's the summer that we met, and it's so great to keep those connections alive.
And look at Billy's career now. He
Oh
is
my goodness,
he's a fashion icon. He's Pose. I mean, there's so much
yeah.
great stuff. Great things happening with him.
He's on fire, and he has worked hard for it. And the thing that makes me so happy about Billy's success right now is that's who he has always been. He's always known that he was this and that he had this to give, and he wasn't always given that opportunity and had those doors opening. So it's incredible. It's incredible to witness.
So wonderful. Um, Billy Porter, of course, won the Tony Award for Kinky Boots, which was the last North Carolina theater show I saw. And I guess if I had to go out, it's going out on a high note because it was. I think Kim and I called it in our review the happy pill that you may not know you needed because it was such a great, beautiful, uplifting production. I love that show. So
Well, thank you. We were all very proud of it. We just, Well, we're proud of all the shows we do, but this one was just it came at exactly the right time. And just like you say, who knew that that was going to be the last show that we got to share with audiences? And so we're happy that that's kind of where we left it, and the bar was raised to that place, you know. And we'll come back, and we may not do something that looks and feels just like that, but we'll do something that packs an equal wallop, you know, and has great energy and celebration.
When we're going to talk about next season in a minute, I do want to tell people Kinky Boots Parade, which you directed, West Side Story, and a lot of others. Denise Shoemaker. There's tons of North Carolina theater people nominated for Broadway World Awards this year for favorite artists of the decade. They're not doing favorite artists of the year this year. So shoot on over to Broadway World and vote for all your Triangle Theater favorites. But North Carolina theater is listed almost in every single category. So, and Eric's nominated for Best Director, West Side Story, which I really do think was one of the most stellar productions I've seen here in a long time, which you directed. That's up for an award. In the Heights is nominated. So head on over to Broadway World Raleigh. Yeah. Today was a pretty monumental day. The FDA is going to approve this vaccine for emergency use, which hopefully gets us on track to some semblance of normal. I'm really interested because Blumenthal Arts Center, along with 36 other performing arts centers around the country, they keep surveying audiences to gauge comfort levels on when audiences will feel most comfortable coming back to the theater. According to their surveys, 28% of those surveyed said they would not return to the theater until after being vaccinated or developing immunity. Another 23% said both when the rate of infections drop to zero or near zero. I know North Carolina Theater really has your finger on the pulse of your patrons and audiences. Is that consistent with what you're hearing from your patrons?
Well, I would venture to say yes. I don't have the percentage data. I do know that we have been talking to folks, and you know, the vocal ones are the ones that we get excited about, are the people who say we can't wait to get back to the theater, and as soon as you're doing something, we're going to be there. The truth of the matter is we don't really know how many people feel that way. We do hear the flip side of people saying we love you guys, but there's no way we're going to chance this for a long time. Elizabeth Dorn, our president and CEO, and I have felt from the beginning that just like Broadway, we don't really know what the heck to do until there's a vaccine. Like, there's really not a way out of the puzzle. If there is a solution to that puzzle, or to figure out how to pivot to really perform, people much smarter than me would have already figured it out, and I would have stolen the idea. You know what I mean? It's just so I think we have been really creative, and lots of theaters have been really creative and done some incredible things. But I think it's going to take having the mass, vaccinations, and then who knows how long it's going to take after that for people to feel really comfortable. So, we're trying to just take the encouragement of seeing a glimmer of light at the end of the tunnel. And, as it's been said on the news, the beginning of the end. And we don't know how long this is going to take. We just have to take baby steps. I have shifted things with the season so many times and moved things around, and we have, and things could have to shift again. Like we just don't know. We're doing what we have to do, which is following safety guidelines, our North Carolina guidelines, and we have to follow, we're the only large equity theater in the area. Playmakers is an equity theater, and some other smaller theaters in the area are non-equity theaters that have equity guest contracts. But we're the only large equity theater that has to operate under an equity contract. We don't have the option of doing something non-equity, a production. And so there are a lot of restrictions that are in play right now. So it's going to be a gradual. Everybody wants to get back to work. Everybody wants to get back to doing productions, and so we're constantly brainstorming to see what is possible. What can we do? What would be safe? Can we have one person and one dancer 10 feet behind them? We've been exploring some of those things, and so we're trying to take it to the next step. But right now it's also, not to just talk brass tacks of money, but it's right now people aren't allowed to be inside over
Yeah,
so,
you can't be together with more than a certain number of people inside.
Yeah. It was 25, and then some gatherings have gone back down to 10, but I think it's still 25 for theatrical. So we see 2,300. We have 2,300 seats. So 25, makes no sense. We can't afford to do it. And then in outdoor, amphitheater spaces, if we were able to take something outside, currently you can only have 100 people there. So we have to do the numbers. We have to do the numbers to. We want to entertain people. We want to do things for free when we can, and we have been doing some of those things. But we also, to stay afloat, we have to make money to pay for what we're putting out. So that's a very real part of it.
And the other piece of this is, and there are some venues that are reopening and doing live shows. Raleigh Little Theater has a show opening tonight. Theater Raleigh will have a hybrid concert, which they are going to have some in-person tickets and then some presented virtually as well. But you all are not in that position because you're at the mercy of the Duke Energy Center. You also you're falling under their guidelines as well.
We're falling under their guidelines. They're doing all that they can to get things open as quickly as possible and to get people in there. We are, because, as and I think most people know, we're a theater company that doesn't have a space. So we don't own a physical theater. We don't have a physical theater. We do have our offices at the Downtown Performing Arts Center, and that's where we're tenants, and we love being tenants there. But we use the space like any other person or company that's coming in. So it's timed. It's you have this amount of time in there. You can do this. You can do that. And they're dealing with their own restrictions that are given to them. So they want nothing more than to have people and have companies back in there performing. And Zali and the ballet, they were able to go in there and shoot, this condensed version of the Nutcracker, which is going to be absolutely gorgeous. And so we're brainstorming things like that. And I'm going to be there at Theater Raleigh's hybrid night. I'm so excited. I wasn't able to go to the first one, but I'll be there for this one and I went to Cape Fear, to see Lady Day, which was performed outside. So I think we're all trying to cheer each other on, and we're also all trying to see how each other are doing it. I will say, I love community theater. When mentioning Raleigh Little Theater, and even Theater in the Park is doing this virtual production of A Christmas Carol. Again, our situations are different because community theater is based on volunteers. People are not being. It's not professional in that way. It's certainly professional quality. It's incredible quality, but that's different when you start looking at the numbers. We don't have volunteers who do things for free because we're a professional theater company, and so that does make a difference. Not to mention the union aspect of ours.
Well, and I'm going to put a link if you're watching on Facebook, YouTube, or Twitch. I'm going to put a link to the Duke Energy Center for the Performing Arts. I'm going to put NCT's link in, of course, too. But I love the transparency that they've provided because they have all of their reopening guidelines and protocols online. So you can see exactly what they're doing, how they're shifting. They'll have health ambassadors on site for people who have questions. So as things do reopen, I think that that things are really. I appreciate Duke Energy Center's transparency. To be honest.
I think they're doing such a wonderful job. Elizabeth Doran has been working more closely with them than I have been, but Terry Painter has been spearheading this, and she has been in close contact with the Blumenthal, and is really monitoring how the top organizations around the country are doing it. And so she's putting great plans in place, and then Michelle Bradley is on the ground there really implementing. And so I think that it will be safe. I don't know when it will be able to open it up and do what they have in store, but it will be safe, and it will be state of the art. They'll be taking all the proper precautions.
We have a question from Facebook. Kimberly wants to know, can North Carolina Theater use volunteers? Are you guys looking for volunteers right now? I know on normal times you do take volunteers.
Yes, we absolutely. Please get in touch through our website. There's information there, and let us know. We're always, we'll never say no to people who want to be a part of and help, and we'll find a way to include everybody. And I just want to specify, when I was saying that we don't use volunteers, it's not that we don't use volunteers, but as a professional theater company, it is different than the way a community theater is set up and built. A community theater is for the community, and it's on a volunteer basis. People that are auditioning, and people that are working backstage. It's a different format than what we have at North Carolina Theater. That's all I was saying. And they're both wonderful.
It's a different, just a different business model. It's
That's right.
A different business model for theater. I know that you have you spent a good part of your career in New York with Tara Rubin casting. I think most people agree that regional and community theaters will come back before Broadway. It was recently announced that maybe Hamilton will come back in July.
Yeah.
We'll see. What are you hearing from your colleagues in New York? Will there be a lot of casualties and a lot of shows that are unable to reopen?
Gosh, I don't know. Everybody is speculating. I mean, it's so bleak right now. It's so bleak. It's so many casting offices and agents have given up their offices, their physical space. Not saying that they will be out of business when this comes back, but they'll work out of their homes, for a while, because people can't afford rent. And so many actors have left the city and have gone back to school and started different careers. And it's just the reality. Because people have to hold on, and will they go back to performing? Possibly, hopefully. But I think as far as shows, I don't know. I would just be guessing. I think it will be difficult for some shows to come back. My heart goes out to the ones like, Six was supposed to open the night of the closing, and my heart just goes out to the shows that were in previews. Like all my friends, and I love everybody in company, and I was supposed to go up the next week for auditions, and I was going to see something every night, and at least we're going to get to see Diana. They filmed that. Yeah.
We got to see Hamilton. We're going to see a version, an adaptation of The Prom this weekend, which I'm very excited about. So we're getting snippets. We're getting I hear from my colleagues too in journalism that things are kind of bleak. They're not dead, but bleak.
Yeah. Yeah. Tonight, you know, at 8 o'clock, there's the one night only that Tina Fey is hosting. And that and the Thanksgiving Day parade were real shots in the arm for a lot of the show folk because they were all posting. They, you know, were so careful, and you know, they were all showing how they would get to the spot in their masks and all, and how they could rehearse, and then they had to stay so far apart, but they were able to shoot it and make it look pretty normal, you know, which is a great feat. But everybody was so excited. Everybody kept posting and saying that they just started crying, and like all the kids that most of the Frozen cast and some other Disney family folks that did that number, you know, that was inside the new Am, they were just saying they walked in there and burst into tears. It's you know, it's so emotional. It's our life, and it's you know, not to be like too dramatic about it, but I will say it doesn't feel like it's something that any of us in New York take for granted. I don't feel like you ever take for granted walking into those theaters and sitting there and that smell, and I don't think you ever take it for granted. And to not have it right now is really difficult.
There's nothing like it. Last Broadway show I saw was Jagged Little Pill, and I saw it on the very first preview night in New York. And there's just nothing like that energy and being in the room with that
Mhm.
energy building up throughout the show, especially a show like that where
Yeah,
people are getting standing ovations mid show. There's just nothing like it.
yeah.
Um, we've also seen an amazing uprising in New York City and really everywhere in the wake of the murder of George Floyd.
Mhm.
And NC Theater, I know, has really used this time to take a hard look at the company, the policies, the procedures, and you've created a task force. NC Theater has created a task force to address equity, diversity, and inclusion. And I was wondering if you could speak to that and the All In initiative. What's been
Mhm.
happening behind the scenes at NCT with All In?
Absolutely. Well, we did, you know, first of all, as a full staff, we trained with the partnership project, and it was their REI groundwater training, and that was for, you know, the racial equity inclusion. And then, as you mentioned, we developed a task force with our staff, and we have meetings every other week. We have a member of our board that is a part of this and joins us as a staff. And we named it IDEA. It's IDEEA, which is Inclusion, Diversity, Equity for Employees of the Arts. And we just, you know, we're trying to learn more. We're trying to do better. You know, there are things that we had in place because this is something that Elizabeth Dorn feels so strongly about, and has for so long. And one of the reasons that she wanted to bring me here when there was that possibility was because I have been so dedicated to this subject as well. As far as it pertains to casting, mainly, that had been my experience with it, with equity and diversity and inclusion. But now it's much, much larger than that. It doesn't just end with casting. And we are committed to doing better and to listening. I think that's what's important because, you know, I'm a problem solver, and I'm like, tell me what it needs to be, and I'll figure out how to make it that. And it's not that easy. It's not that easy. And so I have learned, meaning there's not always just a straight answer like that. Like it's, you know, X amount of this and Y amount of that. And it's not always that cut and dry. And so I have learned that it's about being open. It's about me personally saying, I don't know. Um, what would you do, or what's your feeling on that, or that's how the dialogue starts. And so we are really dedicated to that at North Carolina Theater. A few years ago, the All In initiative was started and sponsored by PNC, and Blue Cross Blue Shield also is a big part of that. And there's money from the NEA, the grant that we get there. And then there's some city support as well with that. And that was how our initiative began a few years ago. And so we have developed that. We were doing some talkbacks after the show. It's really important that we are involved with the community, and we are representing all different types of people in the community. And the first season that I chose, all of the shows, each show was connected to another community. And that was on purpose because we were wanting to jumpstart this initiative. And we were beginning to do that. And we have a lot of work to do. And we're excited about that work. And one of the things that we've done in this downtime is, I started thinking, what can we do? What is possible? And we have a rehearsal space out in North Raleigh. And it's where we do our rehearsals. And it's also like a black box theater. And it's really an incredible studio. So I thought, let's turn it into a television studio. Mm-hmm. Let's do virtual series. So I started thinking, how can we do it? What can we afford? Who can help do this? And so I thought, let's build a backstage set. So it looks kind of like, if Noise is Off, it looks kind of like Act 2 and Noise is Off. Like it's like you're behind the scenes. And that got the wheels turning, and I thought, let's do a whole backstage series. So that kind of took off, and I'll talk more about that in a moment. But the flip side was, I said, we can film the set when we do those shows, but let's turn the cameras around and get the empty seats and get some like a couch and chair and have kind of like an Oprah set, and do a series that Elizabeth Doran is hosting and has been working on and developing, called All In. And she was quite passionate about taking this All In initiative and furthering it. And so it has really taken off. It's been incredible. She has incorporated student hosts. So her co-hosts have been students. Stefan Emanuel and Allison Staples and Sarah Bach have joined her. And what Elizabeth did is she took the shows that we weren't able to perform and talked about what are the greater themes of those shows and how would those shows have affected the community, and what's the give and take there. And so to have these student co-hosts interviewing an incredible panel of community leaders, it's been incredible.
Listen, I started interviewing people when I was 15 years old, so I'm all for getting the young ones involved in interviewing.
It's so good. It's so good. And the last episode that was out, took Memphis, and we had Memphis all ready to go. We had final run through in the room. I mean, it was incredible, and it still hurts my heart that we weren't able to share that with the public, because it would have blown the roof off of the theater downtown. It was so dynamic, directed by Robert Hartwell. And but the last episode of All In explored, what part does music play in bringing communities together? And so to hear from these great leaders of the community and the experience of our student co-host, it was quite a gripping and actually a moving conversation. And then also we're taking it a step further, both with our All In series and our Backstage at NCT series, and we are forming study guides so that the subject matter from these shows can be taken into the public schools with study guides, so that there can be a further connection to learn about this community aspect or learn about this backstage aspect. And Freddie Lee Heath has been very supportive and excited about making that connection greater.
I love that. And there are so many shows that people can access online, even if they can't see it live, like Memphis. Memphis, you
Mm-hmm.
can actually watch on Broadway on demand on Amazon Prime.
Yep.
And so if you have a study guide, that just goes one step further into giving the show context. I love that.
That's right. That's right. That's right. And, and as far as backstage at NCT, it really was kind of like this thing that just developed and started. It feels like, when you brainstorm things, and I think so many of us, it starts in the shower, and I don't know, it's like as the thoughts start to be clear, it's kind of like these like sheer curtains, pull away, and you start to see what's possible. And that's really what happened with Backstage at NCT, because I thought, what can we do, and what would be interesting, and what would be engaging? And so each episode we take another person that's a part of a production that you don't get to see, and I interview them and I let them talk. And so far we have aired 3. We aired our 3rd one yesterday, and the feedback we get is, well, I get incredible feedback from folks, in the Broadway arena that have worked in theater for years and years, and they're like, Eric, I didn't know some of that stuff. I didn't know that that's went on, and that pleases me, because it means that we're doing something. We're having fun, but we're also educating folks about another aspect of the theater. And then to keep it entertaining, we also have 1 or 2 guests who perform on each episode. So, we're doing all that we can. Well, I don't want to say all that we can. We're doing what we know that we can do. And we continue to brainstorm new ways to keep people engaged, and keep people connected, keep people hopeful, and keep people believing in the magic of theater.
I like Backstage so much. It's Backstage at
NCT.
NCT.
Yeah.
You can watch it on the YouTube channel, the North Carolina Theater YouTube channel. I will put a link in the comments as well to that. But what I like about this series is it is entertaining, but it is educational, in that you are really educating audiences what goes on behind the scenes. And before we kind of jump into that and some of the people that you've interviewed, which I love, can you talk for people who don't understand? There is a difference between what North Carolina Theater has done under you and Elizabeth's leadership, especially in this past season, versus the shows you see at Deepak. You and I've talked about before, presenting and producing, and I think that's where the education piece starts. So the reason you're doing this deep dive into everything happening behind the scenes is because NC Theater is now producing all of your shows. So can you explain to people what that means?
I can. I've loved NCTs. Since I was a kid. I did shows here when I was in high school, and I've always stayed in touch. And even while I was casting, I would take breaks and come back and direct shows here through the years. But when I arrived 2 years ago, I was really hit with how there is such a lack of identity. And it's no one's fault, but people would say, oh, I would say I'm working at NCT, and they would say, oh, is that Ira David Wood? And I would say, no, I love him, but it's not Theater in the Park. Oh, is that the Rose Garden? And I was like, no. And really, I mean, these conversations happen over and over. And I thought, people have no idea who we are and what we do. In some ways, I think that people in New York understand who we are a little bit better than some folks here, and so Elizabeth and I are really, really dedicated to increasing the identity. And when people can see who we are and we want people to come to a North Carolina theater show and know that it's an NCT show. So when they leave, they're like, oh, okay, that makes sense. I get it. Because there's there's a feeling, there's a level of mastery, there is hopefully the subject matter, um, that there's a level that is cohesive. And so there were some steps to take. There are many steps to take to work on that. One is to make a season feel like it is a season, that there's an underlying story, or theme underneath an entire season. That's something that wasn't necessarily done in the past. It's not that it's bad that it wasn't done in the past. Part of that was because in the past 10 years, North Carolina theater did produce some tours. I mean, present. That's
Yeah.
confusing. They produced some shows themselves, and then they would present some tours under the heading of their season. And so that was confusing to people. I mean, a lot of audience just had no idea, what they were seeing, because they had bought tickets through North Carolina Theater. So they didn't know if North Carolina Theater made that show or if that show was a tour. And I learned that when I got here, because it was a tour of Jersey Boys. I had only been here a few months, and it was on the season that I inherited. And people before the show were stopping me and said, "How you feeling? You excited? How you feeling?" And I was like, "Oh my God, they think we did this." I was like, "Well, I guess I'm feeling okay." I mean, the bus drove up about 2 hours ago and they unloaded. I don't know what's going to be on the stage, but although our office cast it, so I was pretty confident that it was going to be a good group of folks, which it was. But we didn't have a connection to a lot of the product. And so now we are committed to making all of our shows here. Now, I do think it's important to say that because we do shows on such a large scale and we do them so quickly, that we do rent a lot of aspects. We will often rent sets, and we will often rent costumes. And there will often be people that we have come in to play parts who have played those roles before, because we do it so quickly. So I don't like to make people think that we're creating every single thing from scratch every time, because we're not. Sometimes we do, but we don't always. But with this idea of getting our identity across, you are exactly right. One of the reasons of doing the Backstage series is because I want people to know that we're making it, that we are making things here. And it's not a bus and a truck that pulls up and just unloads everything and they perform here and go to a different city. We've had lots of audience members to say, "Where does this go next?" And it's like, no, we made this for you. They go back home, or they go back to their Broadway show that they took a leave from, and so the way we do that is to tell people that every show that North Carolina Theater does, we employ close to 100 North Carolina artists and people who work behind the scenes, including the orchestra, including everybody who is working front of house, back of house. And so that's something that the tours can't say. And there's a place for the tours. I feel we don't compete with Deepak. We aren't doing the same thing as Deepak. I want us to build a name for ourselves that there's room for both, that people say, we go to see the Broadway cookie cutter, show, and it's a wonderful version of it that's on tour, and that's what you're going to see at Deepak. I want to build up a reputation in North Carolina theater that when you come to us, you're seeing a different take, a different spin on a show that you might have known, or you're going to see something that you haven't ever seen before. You're going to experience it in a brand new way. That's what we are dedicated to doing at North Carolina Theater. And it's going to take a while. I think people were starting to connect the dots. I really do. And I think that we're beginning this journey. I don't mean to act like we are creating a complete departure from what came before us, because that was the basis of what we stand on to grow, with all respect. But I think there is a way to grow with a new identity.
I agree. I agree. I think you and I have spoken about before how North Carolina theater really is a gateway between North Carolina and New York City, because
Yeah.
there are so many actors who come here from New York and perform on the North Carolina theater stage and go on to incredible things. And then there's people who call this area home, who've returned from New York, who've come here and settled back here, who are working on North Carolina theater and backstage at North Carolina theater. You interviewed Alan Coates. He was in your first episode. He was on Broadway. He found his way to Broadway, and then he lives here now. You live here
Yeah.
now. Warren
Yeah.
Kennedy Brady lives here now. So
Yeah.
there are so many fantastic people. And then there are stars who really got their start here, like Ariana DeBose. You mentioned John Arthur Green.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Talk about some of the famous faces we might see on Backstage at NCT. I know John Arthur Green made an appearance and sang on the program. I think on the second or third episode.
Yeah. Yeah. He was the second one, I believe. Yes.
And so talk about some of those famous faces. And can you talk about, because I think it might be surprising to people, North Carolina theater's reputation in New York, because you've had so many New York professionals work on the North Carolina theater stage.
Yes, I think, well, first of all, just to talk about that connection with New York, and I talked a lot about my first year here being a bridge, continuing that connection to the city and to Broadway, and again, in comparing us to the tours that come through. Yes, those can be people out of New York that are coming through and playing the show, but then they're just here for that time of the show that they're running it at night, and then they move on. The difference with what we do is we bring them here and we're rehearsing, and so we'll bring in, roughly between 12 and 16 folks that are from New York, and the rest of the cast, which is usually at least double that, are from here. And so we get to have that incredible experience of having local performers and sometimes students play scenes in a musical and rehearse with them and get to hang out with and learn from some of their Broadway idols. There was a show I was directing last year, and there was a young actor in it who was quite, I don't know, kind of thrown off, a little nervous. And I went over to talk to her and I said, is everything okay? What's going on? She said, I just need a second. The scene that I'm playing right now is opposite this guy that last year I stood at the stage door and I waited for him to come out to get his autograph. And now I am standing looking in his eyes and playing a scene. And she was in high school. And I was like, you take the time you need. And then she pulled it together and came out there and was amazing. But to give people that opportunity, and then the New York people we pull down here, they love it. Oh my God, they go to the farmer's market in the morning and they're like, look at what I got. They love our area. They love North Carolina theater. And so being able to make that here is such an honor. And it's really, people in the city do know about us. Word travels, and good words travel faster. And so we do have a good reputation. And so agents know that. And when actors have a great time here, they go back, they tell their agent, they're like, I want to go back. And then suddenly the agent is wanting more of their clients to come. And so that has been happening for years and has just been continuing to build. As far as backstage at NCT, I don't want to give all the surprises away, but we do have some cool interviews that are coming up. We are diving into sound design, and we will be diving into makeup. And then as far as some of our singing performers, we have some really incredible student performances, because we're trying to highlight some of our incredible conservatory students from our school, from the conservatory. And then one person that I will let you know about is the incredible Mary Madison, who has worked at North Carolina Theater twice in the last few years. She most recently was Sophie in our production of Mamma Mia. And then before that, she was Gypsy Rose Lee. And so she's originally from Fayetteville, and so we got her to come in and do a performance. So there's lots of fun things to look forward to.
And I have put the link to the Backstage, the NC Theater YouTube channel, so you can find Backstage at North Carolina Theater, and you can find Elizabeth Doran's series All In as well. I do want to ask you, you just celebrated your second anniversary at North Carolina Theater. I think you've been there 2 years and 2 months, according to LinkedIn.
Very good. Yeah, yeah.
Um, I'm not sure that you signed up for leading a theater company through a pandemic, though. I'm not sure that was part of your long-term plan. So,
Yeah.
what have you learned about leadership in the business of theater over the last 8-9 months as we've navigated this pandemic?
Oh my gosh, that's an incredible question, and one that I could talk about for a long time. But to give a shorter answer, I mean, Elizabeth Doran and I are on the phone with each other pretty much daily, sometimes more than once a day, and we have really been on this journey together. And it's such a comfort to know that you do have someone who you are going through this with, and to bounce ideas off of, and to feel like you are working together for solutions. And I will also say so that has been incredible camaraderie. Not that it was a surprise, but I have learned a new level of appreciation and respect for that relationship and that commitment. I also feel the same way about the community theater here. It has brought many of us closer together. I've always been close to Lauren Kennedy, and we've even grown closer just to, go on social distance walks and brainstorm, and same with Zali at the ballet. And, that's how Recognizing the Arts was born. We were brainstorming, what could we do together? So that has been incredible. And I think, when adversity doesn't build character, it reveals it. And so in a time when things are so difficult, as my mom used to say, the cream will rise. I mean, you have to figure out how to rise above. And that has been really, really hard. I mean, it has shown me, I have learned in this downtime how much we need the arts. We need the arts. We need that connection to each other. And, we're trying these virtual things, and we're trying to do spaced out, but, we're a group of people that shake hands, we hug, we join together in a circle, a prayer circle. It's there is something so spiritual about theater every step of the way, from the first day of rehearsal, through tech, those long hours, and that camaraderie, and then through performance, and then finally being able to share it with an audience, and what happens there. A good friend who is Paige Price, who is, I say she's a good friend. It's not that she's a good friend. She is a friend who I know of, and I have great respect for her. I don't want to make our relationship more than it is. But Paige Price, who is an incredible artistic director, she wrote an article for the STC Journal recently, and she talked about what we've been experiencing through this as arts leaders. And she said it hit her just a few months ago that she's grieving, that it really is grief. Now, I don't mean to minimize the people that have been going through true grief with the loss of human lives. I'm not saying it's the same as that. But there is a level of grief because there's such a gigantic loss. And it's just sad, and not just the theater part of it. Like, we're all feeling that, but it's just, through the holidays, this is just sad, and it's difficult, and we have to acknowledge it. We have to acknowledge it so that we can then say, okay, this is where we are. And then the last thing that I have learned is how to recognize being powerless and how to turn it over and say, I now have done all I know to do. Show me the way. I'm open. And I think that's the only way to move through this.
I agree. I agree. And I do think it is not, again, not to minimize what people who have lost loved ones to this awful virus have gone through. It is a grieving process, though. We're grieving connection and community and being together and being in community. So I definitely agree with you. I can't wait to get back to the theater and the happy pill that will be North Carolina theaters next season. Um, my hometown is Miami, Florida. Gloria and Emilio Estefan, they're Miami icons. They still live in Miami. You can go on a boat tour in normal times and pass their house, and sometimes Gloria will be out there waving to people
Love
on the
it.
boat. But and Emilio, I think I told you this a long time ago. When I was about 15, 16 years old, he was one of my first interviews. They were doing a
Oh,
Super
yes, you did tell me that.
my
Yes, yes.
sound machine was doing a Super Bowl commercial, a Pepsi commercial, and I interviewed him at the time for my little talk show. So On Your Feet, which is Gloria Stefan's story bio musical, so much fun. That's supposed to open the season in May. And you've got 9 to 5 and Sister Act and so many juggernaut um, familiar titles that I'm going to call it comfort food for people because that's what these shows are. So talk about next season.
I think so. We're so excited about the season, and we had to do one, a big shift, and in that shift, we made the decision to not do Peter Pan in the summer, just because we just didn't feel like it was going to be exactly the right time to do it, not knowing what state everything was going to be in. And it's such a large show, and with the flying and everything, and to do it the way we really want to do it, we did put that show on hold. And so what we have replaced that with is a knockout concert that's going to be a really incredible Broadway concert with some of your favorite Broadway songs, done in really interesting ways, with a fun cast of people, mixed with local folks and Broadway performers. And then the other titles that you mentioned, Sister Act and On Your Feet and 9 to 5. These are titles that people know and are excited about and recognize some of the music. And we picked this season. This season was all ready to go before COVID hit, but we are so happy with the shows that we have once we come back, because we are dedicated to really coming back with a bang and having a celebration and celebrating the human spirit. I mean, that's what the theme underneath was anyway, which is finding your voice, whatever your voice may be. And because that also carries over with Lady Day at Emerson's Bar and Grill, which is a smaller show and is a little darker in subject matter, but still is a celebration of an incredible talent. And then Ring of Fire, which is the music of Johnny Cash, told in a very creative way with 5 singer actors that also play the instruments. And they step in and out of playing Johnny and playing all the other characters. And so that's going to be a really creative show that will be in the smaller theater at Fletcher. So we can't wait. We're just, we're just holding our breath to be able to come back and get started and to share this. I will say, with the first few shows, we're going to be dipping our toe in the water, and we're going to be seeing, if I mean. We're going to start small. Some of the things we may pull back in some ways. If a cast might be a little smaller than before, but I can guarantee you that the final product will not suffer, because as we see with some incredible theaters here in our area, you look at you look at the shows Lauren does at Theater Raleigh, and might be smaller, but they are incredible and pack the same wallop. So even though we might pull some things back in some ways, just because we're trying to be smart, financially and monetarily, because there's no guarantee on how many people will be coming back right away to see the shows. So it's going to be a little bit of a give and take there in the beginning, but it's not going to affect what we do or how we do it ultimately, what the final product is.
And I think people will just be so happy to be back there.
Yeah.
It won't matter. It won't matter what it is. It's just.
I agree. I literally think I joke, but we could put one person alone on a stage if they're good, which they would be. We put one person alone on a bare stage and sing, and people would come because we want to see something. We want to feel that, and we want to do it live when it's safe to do it.
So Kimberly said on Facebook, the cream will rise. She's quoting your mother. She's going to now use that going forward. Eric's mother has amazing phrases and advice and tips. I think your next series should be like Conversations with My Mother. Like,
oh God, she's watching this, so she's going to hold you to that. We'll be developing a show for her.
Please develop a show. She has the best advice and tidbits, and it's just lovely.
She does.
Yolanda Rabin, who is a North Carolina theater staple, she and I were talking recently about Newsies. She's saying, please wear your masks so we can all come back to live theater. Yolanda, I 100% agree. Just wear your masks. Mask up, curtain up. That's what they're saying in New York, so we can get back to it. This series, Juan has renamed this series of live chats that I'm doing Show and Tell. And so I asked you to bring something for Show and Tell that is something meaningful to you from the theater. So what do you have for us? What do you have to share?
This is the playbill from the Broadway production of Peter Pan in 1980. It was the first Broadway show that I ever saw in the Lunt-Fontanne Theater with Sandy Duncan, and I was mesmerized, absolutely mesmerized. And the pages, well, it's old, but the pages, I studied it over and over. I would go to sleep, at night, like with it. And I was reading about all these people and just dreaming that one day I might know some of them. And I did. I've worked with some of them. And then I geeked out when actually here at North Carolina Theater several years ago, I had the great honor of directing Sandy in Driving Miss Daisy. And I didn't know her, but I just took a chance and I said, can we offer it to Sandy Duncan? And we did. And she said, yes, we know a lot of people in common. And I had to get it out of the way on the first day. I just said, that was my first show and it made me want to go into theater. And she said, you'd be so surprised how many people have told me that through the years, that's what caused it. That's what made people want to go into theater.
It's so funny you said that. I saw that show with Sandy Duncan. So I always say my first New York experience was seeing The Sound of Music at Radio City Music Hall. And that was a movie. That was like the revival. They were doing like the 10-year anniversary of The Sound of Music, and that's at Radio City Music Hall. But my first theater trip that my dad took me on, we went to see Peter Pan with Sandy Duncan, The Music Man with Dick Van Dyke, and the revival at that time of Oklahoma. That was my first big theater trip. And I was mesmerized. I was hooked. So
incredible.
North Carolina Theater holds such a special place in my heart and in so many of our hearts. I was joking. I have a tree for tonight's the first night of Hanukkah, and I've never had a Christmas tree before, but I have two this year, one in my studio here and one in the living room. And I decorated my tree with pictures from my favorite theater memories. and I've got 2 NCT ornaments. So I don't know if y'all can see this. One on my tree, I have my last interview was with Antoine L. Smith. Here's a picture of us in front of the Memphis Marquee at North Carolina Theater Studio.
Oh,
And
okay.
And the other NCT memory I have is Kim and I at the opening night of Kinky Boots. I dragged her to Kinky Boots because she always tells me how much she hates musicals. And I always tell her how I'm going to make a musical theater lover out of her. And so we went to see Kinky Boots and she loved it. So
Great.
But I know that NCT holds memories for so many people because it's such a staple in this community. So I can't wait till we get back. Thank you so much for hanging out with me and being with me and being so supportive of RDU on stage as well.
Oh my gosh, are you kidding me? We were joking earlier, about the number of times that you've interviewed me, but I will be, who were those guests that were known for being like on Johnny Carson and like David Letterman? I will be that. I think they knew that they could get some people last minute if they had cancellations. So if you have a cancellation, you need me, just call me.
I'm going to call you. And I can say there are no other guests that have pillows. So I have the pillow for our next in-person interview. And everybody, please tune in to Eric's series, Backstage at North Carolina Theater. If you haven't watched the glorious production that NCT did with the ballet, it is beautiful. You can catch that on YouTube as well, I think. Is it still?
Yes,
I think
yes.
It's still there.
You can, as well as all of the all-in conversations with the community conversations. Those are all accessible through our website.
And the other thing I do want to share is today I put out an article on our blog about gift ideas for theater enthusiasts, how you can support local theater, and you guys are doing gift certificates for next season. So buy a gift card, give a theater class. I love giving experiences at the holidays. So there's a lot of ways to support local theater. So check that out. And go on the website.
Please do. Yes. And this week is our week of giving, the joy of giving. And so we've been having campaigns pushing this week. So it's such a tough time for everyone. But if there is a way to show your support, please do remember us. And the gift certificates, like you said, are a great gift. So you can find out all that information at NC Theater, spelled with the RE.com.
Yep. Scrolling at the bottom of your screens, you can
see.
Right. Thank you, Eric, and have a happy and safe holiday. I know you're going to watch the
Happy Christmas. Yeah. Yep. It's starting now.
So that starts right now. And everyone, I will see you next week. Thank you again. Mwah.
Thank you.